a lot of misinformation about the Bucks being a second apron team, limiting their ability to go out in free agency and get players to bolster up the roster. Because they traded Chris Middleton when they did, nobody's celebrating the fact that Kyle Kuzma's still on the roster, but it opened up opportunity to build forward, and they're building forward. I miss Drew Holiday, right? It was a great run, but at this point, they need to, the only missing link here right now for the Bucks is a point guard.
Bingo.
They need a point guard. But this is exactly what you want if you're a Bucks fan. Excitement in free agency, because if Bucks fans are feeling this excitement, Giannis is feeling that excitement, and for all the times we've laughed at the nonsense that's been going on all around every TV station, every stupid Twitter account that's trying to click farm and get engagement, it's done. It's absolutely done. Giannis is a Milwaukee Buck. John Horst continues to swing. You got to give some credit to John Horst.
Big time.
Because everyone had doubts. They extended John Horst. I was one of them. I'm not going to lie. I was like, extending John Horst, I've never seen him have to rebuild, right? He was in a spot where he did the trade in the middle of the season last year and opened up opportunities to make moves to rebuild a roster with Giannis for this next iteration of hopefully what is longer than 2 years left on his contract, but proving to him, we're going to do everything to provide you what you need to win another championship, which you made very clear on the Finales show with his brother, that it is your next goal in your NBA career.
That's been Brust Alex Strouf with you, reacting to all the Bucks free agency madness, free agency frenzy here on ESPN Wisconsin, the ESPN Wisconsin app, and ESPN Milwaukee and ESPN Madison on YouTube. So a couple takeaways from everything you just said there, Benny. Really good rant by you, because I think
it's not a rant. That's just information and knowledge.
A good rave by you, a good diatribe.
I'm not yelling at anybody.
I think you're yelling at Bucks fans in a positive way.
Yes.
I think it's a good yell.
Yes.
It's like a motivational yell. And so here, two things I want to take away from everything you just said. Number one, the John Horst piece. I think it's so important to acknowledge everything he's done during his tenure as a general manager of the Bucks. Sure, he hasn't been the greatest drafter in the world. We can acknowledge that. But
sure, but I also think he should get a little bit of a pass with where they draft.
Correct, and I agree with that. Right, late round picks are hit and miss all the time. It's just been more misses, and that's okay, because guess what? You have one of the greatest players in the world in Giannis Antetokounmpo, if not the greatest player in the world, and you are capitalizing on his prime. When you think back to the past, let's go 5 seasons, every swing that John Horst has taken is a swing that every general manager in professional sports would take, right? Think back to 2020 when they acquired Drew Holiday. That ultimately wound up in a championship. A couple years ago when they swung at Damian Lillard. I think if you ask John Horst right now after he waives Damian Lillard and that era comes to an end after 2 seasons, if he would take that swing again, 10 out of times he'd say yes.
Yes.
And you just mentioned the midseason trade. Chris Middleton goes out. They bring in Kyle Kuzma. And sure, it didn't look super pretty down the stretch last season. But to your point, it was to get under the second apron, and it was to allow for flexibility to make moves like they have in the last 18 hours. And so all credit goes to John Horst. The guy knows what the hell he's doing. And I think anybody that had doubts about John Horst's legitimacy as a general manager in the NBA and his legitimacy in building a title contender, well, I think you can throw those doubts in the trash now, because I think he's proven he's capable of that. The other part of this is, we talked all offseason. You reference it as Giannis, which I love. When you reference it as Giannis, we talked, how do you make the pitch to Giannis? And I think a lot of us were fine with the pitch of, well, yeah, it's going to be a gap year. It's going to be a year where Giannis can go out and have fun playing basketball, and he can win his 3rd MVP, and he can put up career numbers. Yeah, it sure was.
That's not how you treat a top 5, if not top 2 NBA player in the world.
Absolutely. It's just like throwing your bad John Horst opinions in the trash. You could throw the gap year conversations in the trash, because this Myles Turner move signals that this team is back in title contention in a wide-open Eastern Conference, right? No Jason Tatum, no Tyrese Halliburton, obviously no Damian Lillard, but he's going to spend the season rehabbing and then will be a true free agent next season. This is an open Eastern Conference. There's still good teams. Don't get me wrong. Cleveland's still going to be good. Boston will still be good even without Jason Tatum. Orlando's geared up for a legitimate push.
I like what the Hawks have done.
I also like what the Hawks have done. Good point by you. But I think the Bucks have now catapulted themselves right back into the title contention conversation, which is huge because I think 18 hours ago even, we were still open to the idea that this could be a quote-unquote gap year.
And I'm glad you mentioned what this means for the landscape of the overall NBA and specifically the Eastern Conference, right? Because a lot of the times that we looked at, all right, well, Tatum and Halliburton, the Pacers who went to back-to-back Eastern Conference finals don't have Halliburton and have just let go of a piece who walked, who they didn't obviously sign, who had been there for 10 years. Great coach in Rick Carlisle, but there's no way with how they're constructed that they can replicate what they've done the last 2 seasons. And part of the reason why is when your best player, who's not a Giannis Antetokounmpo type, in Tyrese Halliburton goes down, you just don't have enough horses to continue to do what you've done. So you can, I don't want to say eliminate. I mean, it's still a very wide open East, and free agency isn't done. We haven't even mentioned the fact that Pat Connaughton was traded. Pat Connaughton was traded for a player that is they're saving $1.3 million on the player they traded for, that I'm going to leave his name for you.
Vasilija Micic.
Who's going back over to Europe. It's essentially an open roster spot for the Bucks to continue to try and build with pieces and offers that they have to Ryan Hollins that they have a qualifying offer out there for. I mean, when you think about the offseason and you think about like very early on, it was Kevin Porter Jr., Taurean Prince, and Gary Trent. You're like, it very much felt like, the Bucks are just doing the run it back thing. Then you can look at now what they've added. They've added Myles Turner, and they've added Gary Harris. And they moved on from a bad contract and a player that was not going to contribute in Pat Connaughton and opened up a roster spot to fill. I don't know if that's going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. We'll see. But my overall point is they have put themselves in 2025 to be in the conversation, not just like we went from, hey, this team cannot be a play-in team to this team needs to be a 3 or 4 seed to give themselves a shot to make a run when you have the greatest player on the planet who I'm excited for. I have such high expectations for Giannis. Maybe unfair based off what he did the last portion of the season without Damian Lillard, but he did it without Damian Lillard and a group in which they had a lot of pieces that they just added more pieces to this team for him to be more successful with. A stretch 5 who's a shooter, who's younger, who can get up and down the court a little bit faster. We knock on your athletic ability. It'd be fun to watch you, Alex Strouf, go a 40-yard dash against Brook Lopez, because he moves.
I think I might have that one.
No, I don't think you do, but I just want to point out, like, he's aging, but they got younger there. Gary Harris, a good refresh, reset. We saw Gary Trent and what he was able to do. They added shooters around him, and this feels like a Giannis-type season where he can not put the team on his back, but simply show each and every year how he's able to adapt to whatever team he has and continue to show his greatness. It's absolutely ridiculous. Even when I filmed with our great ESPN Milwaukee correspondent of social media, Madison Hayes.
Correspondent of social media.
Yeah, I mean, it all works.
Continue.
All I was mentioning is you move on from Dame, and if you're Giannis, you have to be smiling. And then the Chris Haynes report came out. Now everyone's like, he's not smiling. He's like, well, get out of my face with this. Chris Haynes, who I respect. Yeah. He's a very, very well-respected journalist, but he does have strong ties to Damian Lillard. And so this was the same conversation we had when Drew Holiday was traded. And everyone, you just said, everyone would take the swing for Damian Lillard 10 out of 10, hindsight throwing it in the garbage. Yeah. So at the end of the day, Giannis is going to see the light. And I guarantee he already sees the light with what the Bucks have done to build a younger team with more shooters around him. After moving on from Brook Lopez, the only player left from the 2021 championship after trading Pat Connaughton is Bobby. And so again, this is about building a new core for Giannis to win a second championship.
Yes, it is. So let's just take a look at the conflicting reports for a moment. So Chris Haynes, longtime senior NBA insider, tweeted this. Breaking. Milwaukee Bucks star Giannis Antetokounmpo is not pleased with the team's decision to waive Damian Lillard. League sources tell me. It's plural, so maybe more than Damian. Shams Charania, however, wrote this in his ESPN.com article about Myles Turner joining the Bucks. Turner and Antetokounmpo both valued the opportunity to partner on the court during the process, sources told ESPN, also plural. With Antetokounmpo considering his future and whether his best fit was with the Bucks moving forward, Milwaukee executives once again make a major move.
It's a source off, but here's the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is, I will say this, and I believe this in my heart of hearts, and I know Bucks fans do too. Damian Lillard, off an Achilles injury, he will not be playing in this season. And if you're trying to win a championship, the best route for the Milwaukee Bucks is to unfortunately waive that money that you are waiving Damian Lillard with down into the future so you can have an opportunity to go get somebody else. Because I don't believe in my heart of hearts and with my basketball brain that coming back off of an Achilles injury at Damian Lillard's age, which would be the 2026-27 season, is a good idea to try and win a championship with. It's just not. So Horst had to make a business decision, despite it probably hurting. I don't know. This is different than baseball, right? No salary cap. We talk about Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers, how they defer all that money into the future. This is the NBA. It will likely hit their books. It might put them in a spot that makes them a little bit more vulnerable. But you had to do this to get a piece that you believe could help you as a team win a championship.
Justin on the Carbless Talk and Text line, 800-990-3776. Your way into the show, we'll hear from you in the 1 o'clock hour, 800-990-3776. Justin says, would not be shocked if Giannis portrayed he was sad for his friend and teammate. But obviously Chris spins that as he's mad. They are obsessed. Let it go on Giannis.
For sure. Look, at the end of the day, we know that, like, if you're Dame's guy, you're going to put that out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, Giannis is upset about Dame. Look at how valuable the person I'm close with. I got to have his back in this post.
And look, you could two things could be true, Ben, right? Obviously, you can feel sad that you didn't accomplish what you wanted to with one of the best players ever, and Damian Lillard, right? Top 75 player of all time. But you can also be happy that the window is back open.
And he's not going to play next year.
Right. It's not like you're missing out on brilliant Damian Lillard play in 25-26 because he's not going to play.
And who knows what he looks like the year after,
Correct.
Coming off an Achilles injury.
Another year older, plus off the Achilles
Plus, let's
injury.
not forget, before this season, he was a decoy in the year prior in the
against
playoffs.
the Indiana Pacers, right? Absolutely. Yeah, you're right about that. So I think, all in all, this is brilliant by the Milwaukee Bucks.
We can just say it, John Horst.
John Horst, yeah. And the entire front office. Because, I mean, when we were talking about this even yesterday, Ben, you know, we said, well, this is a really crucial 2 weeks, right? You've got to put, at the very least, you have to put on the act that you're putting together a championship contending team for Giannis if you want him to stay. Because this gap year conversation that we had plenty of, and I think prior to the Myles Turner signing, it was realistic that that's what they were looking at, right? Like yesterday, the first day of free agency, all they did was run it back.
It felt like our gap year conversations were justified until Horst started making these moves, domino after domino, from Myles Turner to Gary Harris to moving on from an expiring contract that no one was going to trade for his expiring contract because he's got zero value other than it being an expiring contract, but I still don't know how you be like, hey, do you want Pat Connaughton? He put a 40 in game 82 when we sat the whole team.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Career high for Pat Connaughton in his, his final regular season game as a Milwaukee Buck. He is out. The name of the man in from Charlotte is Vasilija Micic.
But he's going overseas.
Right. I mean, it's just a move.
It was
get
just
rid
a
of a salary.
To get rid of a salary, you save a little over $1 million, and you open up a roster spot for more opportunity to build around Giannis.
You're calling a shot? That's Thanasis?
I think so.
I think so, too.
I really do.
Josh and Heartland on the Carbless text line, 800-990-3776. Lists is more with our friends from Carbless. Josh and Heartland says, breaking, Giannis not pleased with the report that he is not pleased. Very good.
Also, here's why Thanasis would be a good thing. Because all the people that were watching Thanasis in the States on the courtside seats at Bucks Arena, I don't think people understand. And they need to really dig deeper to understand. Watch the documentary about Giannis and his journey, not the Disney version, the actual documentary of Giannis's version of how he got to the States and how he became a Milwaukee Buck. Those two are more connected than anybody in this world can maybe even understand, because maybe you had an upbringing that was tough. Times that by selling shoes and jewelry on the street to coming to America and building your life here, that connection with your older brother. We've heard Jeff Teague on podcasts. We've heard everybody on podcasts. Giannis doesn't know how to operate when Thanasis isn't around. He plays better, and he is locked in from the moment he opens up his eyes. They are texting. They are making sure that the mindset is right. I don't care what a minimum contract is for Thanasis. The value he brings, he's also a phenomenal teammate.
Yeah, he's the most important 12th guy in the NBA.
And I know people can laugh at that. There might be memes that go out when he resigns. I don't care. I am telling you the value of the greatest player in the world having his brother around on a daily basis is important.